Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kenda Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about midlife crisis and marriage. Today we have an anonymous female MLCer. Her bomb drop was March of 2016. Her date of marriage is 1986. She has a vanisher and a high energy replayer. She says, my MLCer and I have little to no contact, but when we do, because of our adult kids, and our daughter's getting married soon, he acts so nice. Then she says, no polite. I think that might be a typo since she's saying he acts nice. The next thing is so considerate. So maybe she meant he acts so polite. I'm putting that as a positive even though there's a no in front of it. Yet I can sense his heart is closed off to me. It's so weird to be in his presence. There's no warmth. But there's no coldness either. I don't understand it. Was his love all an act? So one of the questions I'm going to ask right there with this is, since it's neutral, not bad, not good, does it seem indifferent, like he just doesn't care? There could be that. Let's go on. Before bomb drop, I could sense his heart fading away from me, and I recall sensing an emotional wall he began building between us. No matter what I did or said, I couldn't get him to come out from behind it. I tried and tried, but he just kept walling himself off. But then we'd go out among friends, and he'd be suddenly talkative and cheerful. Then, back at home, he would be sullen and quiet. He also wanted to go out and drink and party constantly. He just wanted to run. There was no depth to our relationship anymore, no seriousness. If it wasn't about having a good time, he wasn't interested. Was his love all a lie? So, let's talk about a few things. First thing, you have a high energy replayer, as you've said. But at home, if he had just stayed home and acted that way, sullen, I would classify him as a low energy wallower, but he was trying to avoid that feeling of sullen and quiet. Especially, and I don't know if this is true, if he's more introverted, it's very, very noisy in an introvert's head. So he might have had so many thoughts banging around in there, he had to escape them. Remember, it's called escape and avoid. And that's true with you're not an introvert, but as an introvert, the heads, etc. Really, I do know that we have really noisy heads. He just wanted to run. So he's trying to escape through this party, the bachelor party lifestyle. Was it a lie? Now, why does that mean it's a lie? You were married for 30 years, and then he hits a crisis, and things change. But does that mean that the previous 30 plus your years of courtship, why would that mean that that wasn't real? Why does it mean that what's happening now is real? This doesn't feel very authentic, does it? And maybe that felt more authentic, but you're thinking, well, he should be more mature now maybe, or he's older, and if he can do this, it must not have been real before. What it means, that it was really well how you described he can go out with friends, with you there, be upbeat, happy, or at least in appearance. He can hold on to the facade and the mask, and then to the point that you might think it's not a mask. Then he comes home and he's this way. And you're wondering which one is real. Well, both of them can be real because he is compartmentalizing and he's putting on a persona that fits this context of the situation. And that he might feel, he may or may not, but he's able to compartmentalize. And compartmentalizing can be confusing, especially if you're one of the people that gets to see that this person is compartmentalizing. Usually, you see a person only in one compartment, and so you're not aware that they're different in the other compartments. And so it might be very confusing as you see the personality changes. But it is a survival mechanism. Imagine that you have a very important job and you're not going to quit it. You don't want to quit it, but you're going through strains at home. And let's say you're not even in crisis, but there's stresses at home. Maybe you have the spouse in crisis, all these things, and you still have to go to work. How do you do that? I used to say, I can't remove my arm and hang it at the door when I walk into the office. I can't remove my heart and move it at the door. I am not good at compartmentalizing. In fact, what I did well and what I didn't do well in Chuck's midlife crisis, I did well at home. It was great because I had time. I had time to focus on the meditation and all these things I needed to do. But when I needed to work, it was horrible. I had a terrible time compartmentalizing and being able to leave that at the door. I I don't, I want to say can't. It just was practically impossible to focus in. And I'm not a person who gets depressed very easily. I joke that I'm unipolar and it's all up. I'm very hyper. But there were periods where I just wanted to go crawl into a hole and sink in because I needed to be doing this depth work at home. And it wasn't happening because of all the time spent on the job. And when I was on the job, I had trouble focusing. I wasn't able to compartmentalize. Your husband has that skill. Now, are they always aware they have the skill? It's a survival mechanism and it's often very necessary. The problem can come is when we aren't able to drop that and be our real self without that persona in important situations. Are we always wearing a persona mask? And are we true person? Do we know who the true person is? Or are we becoming that persona mask and that's our true person? How do we find out? Maybe that's what's sending us into a crisis even. So I'm not going to complain that he's doing this, but it doesn't mean that your love was a lie at all. It also shows his confusion. He suddenly buried. I don't like to say changed his feelings. I like to say they buried. When you go through a depression, your mind, just like when you have something like if you're going hypothermic, your body goes into survival mode and you don't need your limbs, so it protects the core. Depression, think of that as like a hypothermia for your mental state. Your body is going to preserve certain functions, and certain functions it's not going to focus on. Functions like empathy. So empathy goes way down with a depression. And they get to have a tunnel vision where they are focused on themselves, not just in a selfish way, but they don't even notice that you're sitting over there crying or having a bad day. So it's not merely that he was so selfish he didn't see it. Some of the chemicals going on weren't allowing them to have that kind of a notice. There's a compartment in there. He was compartmentalizing, and a great skill to have. But I want you to realize that because of all of these things that depression varies doesn't mean his love was a lie. Midlife crisis is depression. Whether it's overt depression, which is what we think of as depression, or whether it's covert, hidden, masked depression, often called male pattern depression because it's more common with men than with women. But there are so many things that happen in depression where we lose and numb those feelings, and then we think they're not really there. And yeah, even somebody who's in depression, especially when he's a high energy person, he's able to successfully go into a masked, covert depression and function when he needs to at certain events. He can go out with friends and party, but let's remember, partying is an avoidance of what he's wearing the mask to hide from. So he's not working on his issues at that time either. But it doesn't mean it was a lie at all. Right now, why does he seem so neutral with you? And I'm asking in a rhetorical way. Let's think about that. Is it indifference? Is it because he still doesn't know how to feel? Is it he's still not certain about himself yet? Yeah, it's been 6 years. But midlife crisis does last that long. So what I want for you, I want you to make sure you're being detached, being friendly and cordial, and living your life, surviving, and especially not just surviving, but thriving. It's important. And when you see him, work on being joy and light within you. And you know what? That might be a compartment for you right now. It might be. Practice it. Practice it. Because we do fake it till we make it sometimes. I want you to show him a joyful and lighthearted person. And that doesn't mean he'll follow through and notice that or not. But 6 years, he may start looking more. He's being polite. He's being cordial. This is good. You're going to have more chances to see him and have communication with him as your daughter is getting married. And instead of thinking of this as I'm standing and so, I'm doing this so that we can reconcile, I'm showing the light of my joy inside and I'm gifting it to others. Because when I smile at people, it helps lift them up, and he might be a person that gets lifted up. From there, a byproduct could continue on to a deeper sort of relationship, whether that is platonic or not. I hope this was helpful, and I will see everybody in the next question.